Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar titled Act at the Speed of Your Insurance Customers, presented by Newgen Software, the leading provider of a unified digital transformation platform with content management, process automation, and communication management capabilities. I'm Gunjan Kalita, and I shall be your host and the moderator for this webinar. Today, we have Ellen Carney, Principal Analyst from Forrester Research, and Anurag Shah, Newgen's Head and VP of Digital Products as our speakers. At the end of the presentation, we'll be having a question and answer session. We request you to type your questions in the question window of your GoToWebinar anytime throughout the webinar. I shall take them up at the end of the session with our experts. And with that, I hand it over to you, Ellen.
Well, thank you very much, Gunjan. Thanks for everyone for joining us wherever you are. Acting at the speed of your insurance customers, it's hard to imagine that we actually are talking about this in 2021, because I thought that was what we were always doing. But certainly what happened in terms of the idea of speed changed dramatically in the first quarter of 2020, where our customers were really expecting something very, very different from us in terms of the way we were going to engage with them. And that has implications in terms of the priorities of your business, as well as the priorities of your IT organizations. And we'll take a look at that. But today we're going to be covering, let me see if I can get my slides to move forward here. There we go. Okay. We're going to be talking about and answering three key questions. First, as I had talked about, 2020, what a year. And it's continuing into 2021. It's not a post-COVID world that we're living in. It's, kind of a chronic situation. So how did things change in 2020 with respect to customer expectations, the business priorities that we had as insurance organizations, and how did that translate into technology priorities? And here's a clue: companies who had started on this path before 2020 certainly had an advantage. We'll also take a look at what customers want, what they still want, and what does it mean for efficiency and effectiveness initiatives within your own organizations. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about technology capabilities. What are they? What are the ones that are changing the insurance development capabilities that are going to enable us to act at the speed of our customers, and why these technology capabilities are so essential right now? So as I said, 2020, it was quite a year. I mean, it was a year that kind of changed the notion of time. When we thought about the first quarter of the year and we were surveying insurance customers, it was, all about growth, growing revenue. We were going to be focused on customer experience. We had a whole strategic plan that we were going to be implementing that we had started working on back in 2019 and executing from our 3-year plan or our 5-year plan. But pandemic declared in March of 2020, and everything changed. Everything changed. We went into lockdown in markets, within the US, within Canada, around the world. And it changed the way we had to engage with our customers. The fact that we were in lockdown and working from home, that changed our IT priorities and really changed the notion of time for our tech partners within our own organizations, as well as tech partners outside of our organization, in terms of meeting the expectations that changed because of COVID. And this has kind of set a new bar for the insurance industry. It was tempting to think about new normal, now normal. It, frankly, is just normal now. This is how our customers are expecting us to act, and think about our financial well-being, our mental well-being as insurance organizations, and help us prepare ourselves, our families, protect our homes, all of those things from risk. The same thing that insurance companies have already done, just that, the pressure is on us to be able to act faster and in different channels than we had acted in before. And certainly one of the big things is that the pandemic drove customers to shop, especially for life insurance. When we asked consumers what prompted them to apply or open a life insurance policy application in the end of 2020, in first world markets, for basically 1 in 4 customers, or between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 customers, it was COVID. So in the US, 22% said, COVID is what finally drove me to buy that life insurance policy. 23% in Canada, 25% in the UK, 20% in France, and 26% in Italy. But it wasn't just in first world markets that we were seeing it. It was even more pointed outside of the US and Europe. In India, it was 57% of Indian consumers said, I got insurance quotes because I wanted protection for me and my family because of the pandemic. 41%, in Hong Kong, 48% in, excuse me, 41% in China, 48% in Hong Kong. A little bit more like the U.S. and Europe in the case of Australia, because they also went into lockdown, and 38% in Singapore. So big numbers here. That, of course, put big pressure on our core systems in insurance, being able to receive, process, communicate with applicants about the status of their life insurance application. So, when we think about how time changed, it was time now for life insurance, to kind of move first and foremost into the minds of consumers because of the pandemic. And it certainly, we see that in terms of the inquiries that we received here at Forrester from life insurance companies by far and above. They were the insurance product line that was asking Forrester about questions about sales and distribution, and how do we speed up this sales process in this event that people want to basically protect themselves and their families from what could potentially happen here. So these, again, pressures for consumers put big pressure on the time that insurance organizations had. And of course, we saw that consumer behavior reflected both in 2021, but certainly throughout the course of 2020 in terms of their business priorities and their IT priorities. So come March of 2021, we saw something that looked much more like early Q1 of 2020. We want to improve from a business standpoint the experience of our customers. Frankly, it's less costly for us to have a great customer experience, retain the customers that we have, then go out and find new ones. We still want to grow. We still want to grow revenue, and for some insurance lines, especially like private passenger auto here in the U.S. market, that is really in some senses a battle, because that's low organic growth. So it means that we have to deliver better digital experiences for customers, to basically lure them over from the competition. We wanted to improve our products and services, make them more convenient to buy, digitize them. So, in the case of life insurance, maybe we could use an automated life insurance underwriting engine instead of having a paramed visit the applicant and, do a blood draw and that sort of thing for full medical underwriting. So, we saw, technology that was being employed to improve the life insurance application experience. We also saw this interesting shift in the kinds of services that we were providing, including non-insurance services, again, not necessarily related to the pandemic, but another risk that we're all facing, climate change. So things like disaster planning, resiliency planning, for our properties, that's certainly one example. Improving our ability to innovate. And I would say it's not just the idea of innovation, it's commercially viable innovation. So this is something that we've created in our labs, in our, our garages, or wherever it happens to be, that we're going to be able to, make customer or agent and advisor facing. And it's going to scale to be something that's going to be commercially impactful in a positive way on our financial performance. And finally, data insights. We want to make better use of the data that we are sitting on as insurance organizations. It's just an example of the importance of that data. Back in 2014, when I started looking at all the inquiries that come in from insurance companies to Forrester, 7% of all inquiries had something to do with data and analytics and metrics and measurement. By 2020, that was up to 38%, and we see that growing in 2021. So how do I make sense of this fuel that I'm sitting on that's going to power my business? As to help me make the right business decisions that are going to impact my customers, my operations, and certainly my financial performance. And of course, we see these business priorities translating into IT priorities as well. No surprise, increasing innovation. So when speed became so important, we can't take 2 years to make a decision anymore, which was the luxury that a lot of insurance organizations had. They could sit back and watch, and knowing it was going to take 2 years to do anything. That didn't work in 2020. We had to move faster. So technologies, innovations that enabled insurance organizations to, act at the speed of their customers were really, really important. I talked a little bit about data insights and the impact that they had across the business on operations, on customers, and financial performance. We want to align our IT performance to that business performance as well, basically justify the fact that we were able to deliver these outcomes to the business. Interesting question. We didn't ask this until this year. Technology that helps employees do their jobs better, because we know great employee experiences translate into great customer experiences. When the consumer doesn't have to sit and wait on the phone for an agent in the contact center to navigate 8 or 9 different screens to give them the answer to their question, that is a kind of example of technology that helps consumers do their jobs better. So a better presentation, that captures all the data that's going to help get the customer what they need faster. Developing and acquiring new skills. And it probably wouldn't surprise you that new skills has something to do with making use of those data insights on the business side. So data literacy, building data literacy chops within insurance organizations, #1 priority. I like to say that everybody in the business of insurance is going to become a data analyst because of the amount of data that we're sitting on and how important it is to use it to meet our business and our customer objectives. And finally, kind of going back to the increasing innovation priority, we have to move faster. So IT projects, again, can no longer take 2 years or multiple years to be able to deliver. We have to be able to, do these, make changes in, days or weeks, not months and years that we had, the luxury to look at in the past. And of course, companies, as I said, who had invested in, these digital investments prior to 2020 had a big advantage because they could meet customer expectations faster. We ask insurance companies, and in fact, a lot of the verticals that we survey here at Forrester, their thinking or their philosophy around digital transformation. And there are, believe me, a lot of companies that say it is a project. It is, we're in the midst of initiatives right now. But there's an interesting group, especially in the insurance industry, where 1/3 of insurance companies say, we're in a constant state of digital transformation. So it's a kind of a state of mind that they're in. And these were the companies that were able to thrive in 2020 and meet customer expectations because they had made those investments and could act at the speed of their customers. So we've got I think probably unusual for me, because I usually end up talking a lot about what goes on in North America. But here's an example from one of us from our end of 2020 survey that we did with consumers in the APAC markets. This is Indian consumers, almost 2,000. We asked them why they were satisfied with their primary insurance provider during the pandemic. And the top 2 things, and they're darn equal, is I got great service. I got great service in digital channels, whether it was my mobile phone or a website or a chat bot, but I also got great service from the humans that work in the organization, because smart carriers had invested in the stuff, as we saw on the last slide, help people get their jobs done easier. Those are the kinds of technology capabilities that really bubbled up to the top in terms of meeting consumer expectations during difficult times. So, again, really nearly, equal in satisfaction. You guys can read the rest; they're all pretty even. But basically, you had almost half of this population saying this is why it was so important that companies had done it, because it really translated into great customer satisfaction and great customer because of those experiences. And lest we think our customers in the Indian market and any other market aren't watching what's going on with the insurtechs that didn't have some of that legacy stuff that impeded that change in speed in 2021 and had an impact on their ability to digitally transform. The same population, the same group of Indian adults, in this case is a little bit higher, it's almost 3,500. We asked them, what would get you to think about from an innovation standpoint? Again, keep thinking about what insurance companies and their tech teams are prioritizing in 2020. And they're turning to inspiration from the startups. These are some of the things that at least customers in the Indian market said. I want rates that automatically adjust, usage-based, on demand, per drink. What was so compelling in 2020 is anything that was kind of usage-based or on demand, because it reflected the fact that my car was sitting in the driveway, for long periods of time not being driven. So insurance rates that kind of reflect that usage-based. Using AI, and again, a little bit of a slippery slope here. Something that we're going to be looking at in terms of emerging technologies, which is ethical AI, but the extent to which you're using artificial intelligence to analyze my needs and suggest the best policy for me. And of course, one of the reasons why this is so compelling is, it becomes personalized. It becomes tailored just for Ellen Carney, and it makes it harder for me to shop. So when you think about customer experience and customer retention, this will be an important, a driver of that. I'm being able to use everything I need to do using my insurance mobile app. And we'll see an example shortly in terms of how that important that was in, another financial services line that we turn to a lot for inspiration outside of the insurtechs as insurance carriers, banking. But being able to do everything live in my mobile app. And get all of that stuff done. And we're seeing that kind of translate into, not just, the app that we've downloaded from our insurance carrier or our banks, but increasingly in markets, APEC, and we're definitely seeing it move here to the US as well, lifestyle apps, where, I can, basically manage my life, whether it's my financial wealth or my insurance needs in an app. I want to personalize my premiums using data about my health. 46% said that was important. An insurance agent that I can connect with via my mobile app. And we're seeing that, the agents aren't going anywhere. Still going to be a vital part. They certainly were challenged in 2020 around the world, but many independent agencies and captive agents also have mobile capabilities now. So the expectation is not just that the carrier from whom is issuing the policy, but the agent or advisor or broker that sold it to me. Gosh, I can I can manage my policy. I can contact my agent. They can push me text messages about risks and threats in my particular market, check and see if I'm okay. But that interaction with the agent is also really important. So kind of a whole slew of things that we see as inspiration for traditional carriers, getting the attention of consumers in markets outside the US that and again, very vibrant insurtech market in India right now, that are catching their attention and great sources of inspiration for traditional carriers. So in tough times, as we saw in 2020, people just want to talk to people. Before we joined, we were kind of talking about, getting back on the road and traveling and meeting clients and, going to conferences and stuff like that. And in many senses, we're kind of starved for that experience where we're back seeing people that we interact with, in our business lives and, certainly in our personal lives. And, people just really want to talk to people. And even though we have these great digital tools, there is still the opportunity to use these tools that we had talked about, to better enable the human-to-human communications channel. And part of the reason for that human is the level of satisfaction. I talked a little bit a few minutes ago about the fact that we're going to take a look and see what an industry that insurance companies turn to for guidance about what's happening in markets that I should be paying attention to. Banking is a great one. When we asked, banking customers in the U.S., Canada, the U.S., U.K., and Australia about how satisfied they were with working in a branch, with a human, you see the kind of high performance here, but close to it, frankly, is the mobile app. What's on my smartphone that's going to help me, manage my claim in the case of insurance, pay my bill, add a driver, change, add a vehicle. Those are great examples of how we are seeing insurance customers actually use, a carrier's app or mobile website, to manage their insurance relationships. So very, very close, just as sort of we saw in the same level of satisfaction with, Indian consumers, great, human support in the call center, great, mobile support on my smartphone. Unfortunately, you can see here in markets like the US, UK, and Australia, we didn't fare quite so well in terms of satisfaction, at least in the banking relationship with over the phone. And part of the reason for that is that probably less so in banking, but much more so in insurance. The nature of the interactions are less frequent, and what you have is basically digital site rage. Let's describe it that way. In the case of some insurance customers, that drive them to the phone. And so they sit in long queue times, and it certainly impacts their degree of satisfaction with that contact center experience. So hence the value of the app, and certainly things like chatbots. So in this kind of change sense of time that we have, time has speeded up in terms of what customers expect, how that's snowballing and trickling. It's more than trickling down, how it's snowballing down to insurance tech organizations. It means we have to kind of think about a big reboot in the way that we're focused in the business of insurance. And certainly one of the things that we've seen is, we got to be better, we got to be faster, and we got to deliver more value, to our customers. So, these are, insurance organizations who are, have designated, top priority for their firms. We want to improve the experience of our customers. And we ask them, what are they doing to do that? So, again, with the frustration with online customer experiences, as they talked about, kind of those rage clicks that you unfortunately tend to see in the pandemic, we want to improve that online customer experience. We want faster product launches. We saw that in the priorities, earlier. We have to move faster. So, in these times where, time has basically speeded up, that's going to affect our product launches too. And, other things here, value of the degree of engagement, making sure that we're always delivering value to our customers. Very, very important. And then ensuring that, regardless of the channel that the consumer opts, to file their claim or pick up their claim or assess their claim status, it's a consistent experience. The same information is consistently presented and things like that, and it gives consumers confidence that they're in the right place, and there's nothing untoward happening with their claim. So this kind of gives you a sense of some of the priorities that insurance organizations who have prioritized CX as a as a business priority for their companies are actually investing in 2021. And that said, that's of course translating into the importance of legacy systems. So it's great to have all these digital experiences, but gosh, you've got to go back to a foundational system where all this information is residing. to be able to ensure that those digital experiences actually are delivering on, what's been promised to the consumer. And so much of that is being driven by, the core systems, in our environments, whether it's claims, whether it's policy administration, whether it's rating, whether it's billing. These became much more important during the pandemic. So a third of insurance organizations said that the value and the importance of their legacy apps and business systems increased during 2021. And I think it's kind of interesting that amazingly syncs up with that number of insurance organizations that said, digital transformation is a state of mind here at our company. It's how we live. So, again, this idea that, we have to have systems of record that can, basically step up to the challenge that, the pandemic presented to us as insurance business and IT organizations, to enable us to meet consumer demands. So it means we have to think about doing some things a little bit differently than we had done in the past. So I suspect if, I kind of polled you, if we were doing an online poll and asked you, with a priority of efficiency within your organization, this would end up being very high. Let's take out the manual processes that slow things down. Let's invest in technology capabilities that help us do things, do things right, do them faster, make them more convenient. And of course, that's always going to be a big priority. But when we think about, enabling the human to human interaction, that's about being effective. And so doing things right, efficiency, doing the right things is effective. And you're going to see a very interesting shift in, insurance priorities, both from a business standpoint and from a technology standpoint moving forward because of, this pivot from efficiency to effectiveness. And here's why. All that tech investment that we had made in the run up to, the pandemic and before, we saw insurance productivity growing. Per unit of tech investment, whether that's dollars or euros or whatever measure we wanted to use. But insurance productivity that was being driven by tech investment increased until 2018. And some of you may be scratching your heads. Why did it start to drop then? The economy was booming. People were buying insurance. They were buying. We had a strong economy job-wise. They were buying cars. They were buying toys. Homes, stuff like that. What happened? Well, this is what happened. This is all U.S., but I suspect it's probably not just limited to the U.S. This is Bureau of Labor Statistics data. Big change in insurance job skills between 2012 and 2020. And you can see it here. 2012, we had fairly, maybe not equal, but, the number of high skilled jobs in insurance, 42% of them. We had more low skilled jobs then. 30% of jobs back in 2012 were low skill. Pushing paper, processing, rekeying, data entry, those kinds of tasks. Come 2020, high skilled jobs shifted to 60%. Finding the technology that was going to improve the productivity of those high skilled jobs like big data scientists, behavioral scientists, CX professionals, digital strategists, that's hard to find. Maybe there's some enabling technology that's going to improve the experience that we're delivering to customers, but the stuff that's, helping us think data, for instance, is kind of few and far between. So this is the interesting shift that we're seeing that's being driven by, we've not caught up from a tech perspective to the change in job skills. So many of those job skills, are going to be, basically screaming for tech answers that are going to help us be more effective. So, it's going to, allow us to kind of pivot the business of insurance from being kind of this slow moving, pack oriented, but very intelligent, species to being something that's going to have to move a lot faster moving forward. So we're going to kind of move from smart elephants, but slow moving, to very fast moving, nimble, cheetahs, because basically the notion of time has changed for us in the business of insurance. So what is this meaning for insurance organizations? In many cases, it's we can move faster if we build it ourselves, if we employ the own skills. And again, these are high skilled jobs, right? Our application developers, our programmers, our business professionals, maybe it's even a junior underwriter who's going to be involved in this. But when we asked back in 2019, what are your firm's motivations for developing apps yourselves instead of buying something that's commercially off the shelf? Competitive advantage is the big motivation. I can move faster. I can get functionality and capabilities that I can't get from the big names in insurance core systems. I can reduce the complexity of the customization, which unfortunately runs rampant in our industry and ends up causing all kinds of problems of their own. But I can build something that is going to be basically less complex for me to manage. I can basically protect our intellectual property and competitive position, because I'm not basically mimicking capabilities that everybody else has. So you kind of read down the list here in terms of this kind of new shift in this ability, and this seems almost counterintuitive. We have to move fast. Why would we want to build something? But it's basically because we can take it into our own hands and move forward. And this is certainly the value proposition of Newgen in terms of the capabilities that it's able to deliver to insurance customers in this time where, or in this period, let's put it this way, where the meaning of time has really, really sped up in order to meet customer and business and operational objectives moving forward. So with that, I think I've given good evidence about why this is an interesting, critical time for the business of insurance. And with that, Gunjan, I'm going to pass it back to you. Oh, and I apologize. Low code, key to delivering these kinds of capabilities. So apologies for my quick end here. So this is certainly one of the reasons why we're seeing low code come to the fore as a build or compose capability moving forward. So empowering departmental IT, making moving faster, empowering employees to deliver this app, so basically expanding our pool of developers moving forward. So Gunjan, with that, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. That was truly insightful. And it is a great reminder of the need for insurers to accelerate their operations, to adapt to the changing customer expectations. Especially loved your take on the build versus buy conundrum. And with that, I invite Anurag to give us a glimpse into how Newgen is aiding this motion. Anurag? Anurag, you might be on mute. This is it. Perfect.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, totally.
And you can see my slide.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you, Gunjan. Thank you, Ellen. That was a great insight. And I'll just let me go to the just one. Okay, so Ellen really talked about a few key things, what went through our pandemic year, which is 2020, what is going through the current year, 2021, various challenges. And I'm just going to take a couple of things from that and kind of relate or take a leaf or segue from what Ellen has already described in great detail. So we all saw that the world has changed, is continuously changing. Last year, we have seen what went. This year, we are continuing to live through that. Now, in this, almost like post-pandemic now, the customers today, there are two or three things which are happening. One, definitely the customers are increasingly demanding. They are more uh, likely, they like to see the experience that they have with the likes of Amazon and those. So the experience, what is being rendered and delivered to the customers, those the expectations are changing almost on a weekly and monthly and quarterly basis. Now, on the other hand, the employees or the users who are delivering those experiences to the customers, they are increasingly working remotely uh, by compulsion last year, but more so by choice and by flexibility this year. What is that what is where that is taking the enterprises to is to move to cloud. The enterprises who were thinking and planning for next 2 years or 3 years or 4 years to do this transition to do this transition to cloud, now they are accelerating that entire transition and that planning. The CEOs, they want their business to be nimble. uh, Ellen talked about being nimble on this, and the CIOs, the technology leaders, they are looking to transform their businesses digitally for their CEOs. So these are the 2 or 3 things which are really challenging in the way the world is changing. And when you look at the digital transformation, really, it is a complex, we all understand, it is a difficult task. But really and truly, how is it difficult and how is it complex? If we just take a couple of 2 or 3 such parameters, if you look at any of the line of business within insurance, it tends to start with the complexity, be it the policy issuance, new policyholder, customer onboarding, claims, digital policy servicing or policy servicing. There are hundreds and hundreds of types of requests and services to be performed, to be done. The nature of these services and requests are again different. I'm going to touch upon this in a little bit detail in one of my case study going forward for a customer. And then you have got this varied type of data scattered and in all parts of the organization. You have got these data. Some are lying in some database, some are lying in some core applications, portal applications, your file repositories, your file shares, chat. Right now we are on this webinar. There are teams, there are audio, video. So the data access enterprise wide is making it is just compounding on the complexity that the very basic inherent nature of business is. And then we talked about the customer experience, demanding Amazon like expectations, and all of these with the backend applications integrations. You look at any of the insurance companies applications or the systems that they are including into the processes, the applications which are participating into the processes, into internal processes, into customer-centric processes, into partner-centric processes. There are so many of these applications. If those live in their silos, it is making life much more complex and cumbersome. And the technology leaders are looking at those rapid and agile and quick application development to contribute towards the digital experience that they want to provide. So if you look at all of those aspects, what we see is that no one single platform has so far been able to address all of those needs. And that's where I want to introduce Newgen One, which has 2 or 3 essential components. It has a process component, it has a content component, and it has that customer engagement and experience component. So the process component really allows the organizations to quickly and rapidly automate those business processes, bringing the content into the context of the process. The insurance, again, the nature of the business within insurance is so content heavy, and it is so much of a complex content, and we are going to see how it is. When you combine those with the data and the processes and the line of businesses, the complexity just exponentially increases. How do you bring all of those complexity into a simplified or simplistic solution for both internal employees as well as external customers? And Ellen mentioned this, the great employee experience transforms into great customer experience. So if you look at the Newgen One platform, I talked about it, I mentioned those three pillars. Let's start with the lower left low code process automation component. So this component includes the workflows, the processes, the business process automation. But in addition to it, it also includes a lot of those leading edge technology components like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotic process automation, the bots, and then that dynamic case management aspect of it. Not all processes are structured, which you can design and then run it all the time. There are exceptions, there are discrepancies, there are cases which must be dealt with when it occurs in production in real time, which was not thought of when you designed the process. So that dynamic case management aspect of it. And then when you move toward the right contextual content services, so the content, and it is no longer just the document and the scanned images and those kind of things. Today the content has got different shapes and forms. It has your contact center who are talking to the customers. It has the email, it has portal, social, mobile, in-person walk-ins, your audios, videos. So there are all shapes and forms of the content are now today participating into any of the business process that you look at it. Managing that entire content, making that content intelligent, and presenting that content in the context of the process what you are serving, that is what is going to be instrumental in achieving that digitalization of your organization. And then on the top you see customer engagement, omni-channel customer engagement, all the channels that we talked about. Whether you are taking requests from the customers or your partners are participating with you in processing those requests, or your internal employees and users working on those requests and then engaging with the customers, be it on web, on social, on mobile, in person, or on contact center, on a call, irrespective of the medium, how can you seamlessly render the same customer experience? Again, we talked about Amazon-like customer experience to your customers. So that is that in a nutshell, those three pillars in a nutshell constitute Newgen One platform. Let me take a couple of case studies quickly. This is a case study about an insurance company. They are in a business of managing closed block variable annuities. What they really do is they go out and they buy these portfolios and blocks of the life insurance, the closed block life insurance, which are variable annuities in nature. So when they go out and they purchase and these kind of blocks from insurance companies, these blocks come with its own associated policy admin systems. The content which would have got gathered in the last 20, 25, 30 years of the life of the policies that block entails. And in one of such example, the block that they acquired, it had more than 150 different types of service requests being served through those many individual workflows, where the content which were related to those policies were scattered through 4 different legacy repositories amounting to 40 terabyte, about a couple of 100 million documents which are relating to the policies, which would be required to be referred when those policyholders would reach out for any of the service requests. So the challenges that they saw when they acquired this block, and for which they wanted to transform this entire thing digitally, there were primarily three or four primary challenges. One is obviously the channels. They were having these requests. These are like all these more than 150 different types of requests are of different nature. Few could be of financial nature, where the policyholders or the agents or producers on behalf of the policyholders may be sending those weekly, bi-weekly, monthly financial contributions, the checks for their policies. They may be the service request could have been in non-financial nature. It could have been administrative, it could be claims, it could be just moving and changing the address to changing the nominees, beneficiaries, contributions, and all of those things. And these service requests were received in multiple through multiple channels. So they had these emails, they had this fax. Somebody could just write an email with the content in the body of the email. Somebody could go to the website of the company, download a form, print it out, fill it with a hand, scan it, attach it with the email, or just mail it physically. Or others could just call the contact center and then ask for the service through the call. So there were all different types of channels through which these service requests were coming in. And then the volume of these requests, there were certain spikes which the company was facing. When there are those month ends, quarter ends, or year ends, the policyholders would try to maximize their contribution with respect to their tax filing or by the end of the tax year. So those were or based on their internal quarter, their own personal quarterly, half yearly, those kind of investment goals to meet those. So those were the spiked volumes which they had to take care of. And then because they had acquired this from another insurance company, they had this objective and they had this timeline within which they had to move out of the parent, the source company's systems to their own systems to avoid paying in excess of what they had agreed. And they had this flat time bound 8 months from start to finish to go live. So these were few of the challenges with which they started. Now, if you look at the solution that we provided on this Newgen One platform, so first and foremost, we looked at those 150 or more than 150 different types of service requests, which were all relating to individual workflows in the previous world. We looked at that, we worked with the customer, and we had our partner here who were working with us on the implementation. And we rationalized those, we optimized those. In one of in my title slide, you had seen that the tagline, unlock simple. So really and truly what we did was, even though the business still is complex, managing more than 150 different type of requests, going through multiple departments, if there is a financials which requires underwriting to be done on the policy, the underwriters come into the picture. If there are counter offers, those go back to the policyholder. So all of those things are part of the process. But in looking at all of those, what we did was, after those rationalization, optimization, we simplified all of those more than 150 into true sense business process management, BPM workflows. Those were 13. So those were the number of workflows which those 150 were transformed into. It does not mean that the complexity of the business was reduced. It just meant that the complexity of the business was managed optimally and rationally to make it simple for the internal employees and users. Again, going back to the same what Ellen talked about, great experience of internal employees transform into the great experience for the external customers. And then we manage that content again here. The content which comes as part of the service request, maybe in the policyholders or the customers can send in their request, and that request that request may, if they, let's say, if I'm a policyholder and I'm holding more than one policy, I may send in a request which relates to 2 or 3 different policies of different kinds. And all of those could be in just one letter, in just one email, one fax. How do you manage that complexity of these tasks to track it, to process it individually, but track it summarized with the summarized status back to the customer? So all of those splitting, merging, and then presenting the historical content. So when a request is being processed, more often than not, there are situations where that request relates to one of the earlier requests which may have got processed in last, let's say, 6 months, couple of years back, maybe even 5 years back. When we migrated those content into Newgen repository from those 4 legacy, the taxonomy, the searching mechanism, there were intelligence which were built in, which allowed these users to be presented with those historical content in the context of today's process, instead of them scrambling through the volume of the content that came with the blog. All of those things. And then this process was tightly integrated with the core system. There were 2 different policy admin systems in which the policyholders data resided. So we tightly integrated with those policy admin systems. So as soon as any request comes in, there were other intelligence and rules built in through which the policyholder was identified, either through a barcode on the form or through other mechanisms. And as soon as the policyholder is identified, the system would go back to the respective policy admin system, pull out all those relevant data. If there are historical content which are required to be presented, pull out those, present all of those in a unified and ergonomic simple interface to the user for processing those. So if you really see the benefit and the return on investment that the customer got, of course, customer experience remained the top priority, which they were able to achieve. But at the same time, the internal user experience, the entire processing of the complex processing of those service requests, they are calling it digital policy servicing platform now. That entire complexity was transformed into a simple and ergonomic processing platform. Their efficiency and productivity increased to multifold. They were able to get those holistic 360-degree visibility and tracking of the requests which are coming in, the turn time, how much time it is taking, what type of requests are getting straight through, what type of requests are going into exception, are we getting all the inputs from the policyholders and the agents when the policy is being received, or are we missing anything? Regulatory compliances like FINRA SEC 17A4, which requires the insurance companies to keep all the customer artifacts in an immutable storage, which means you cannot tamper with what came in. Those must be preserved in its raw format. A cross utilization of users to manage those spike in the volumes. When those volumes spike towards the end of those month, quarter, and year, how can we move users and employees from other queues and low volume queues into the high volume queues seamlessly without having to retrain them? So can the system include those kind of rules, checklists to ensure that the processing is done in the same standardized way by these cross utilization of users? And then last but not the least, because this company is in the business of going and acquiring and purchasing those blocks, in future, when the leader of this the business leader of this organization had this vision clear in his mind that I want a platform which helps me in managing my future business growth and expansion when I go and acquire more blocks, which will then come with more additional and different policy admin systems, may come with other different legacy content repositories or file shares. So the business leader was clear in his mind that there is a need for a platform which will take care of that, and that's what they're able to achieve. I wanted to touch upon one more case study. Looking at time, maybe I'll be a little bit quick here. So this is a Fortune 100 property and casualty insurance company here in US. and this is about the claims relating to a claims department, obviously, and it is about the claims which are like litigations of the nature, which are like class action suits, which runs into months and years, which are typically managed and handled by the attorneys and lawyers. So this is all about that. Quickly, if you look at the challenges, right? I mean, if I take just 1 minute, go back into the years how they were working in the previous world. So these group of attorneys and lawyers, they would have this physical folder which will accumulate the pages after pages, and because these are the litigations and class action suits, it will run and it runs into months and years. So over a period of time, the number of pages in that folder would go anywhere between 500 to a couple of thousand or even more. And then when you open that cover of the folder, you would see multiple pages on the inside cover of the folder, which will have those annotations date-wise written and annotated by the lawyers that on such and such date, such and such work was done on this page number, on this section, and there were multiple pages of that. This file would travel from desk to desk, from lawyer, from attorney to finance to other operations people, and everybody would do the same thing. And now if you look at the way this was required to be done, because these are those litigations, there are court hearings where there are documents, there are pages, there are sections which are required to be presented to the judge. The judge may ask just one section of the file, they may ask the complete section of the file, the complete full file. They may also say that I want the entire document, entire content in its raw format without any of your work, or they may just want one section with whatever work you have done. So there were all different permutation and combination in which this file was required to be presented for those court hearings. And then when you look at the way these attorneys and lawyers are working, so when they are working there, they would have certain notes and certain annotations which are private to them. They would not like anybody else to see. And then there would be certain restricted access notes which are only allowed for certain group of users, and then there are certain public notes which are allowed to all. If you look at all of these, what it resulted into, the lawyers and those attorneys, they would keep one copy for themselves of the file which are private to them. There would be a restricted access copy which would be just restricted to certain group of users, and then there is this public file. And then compound that with the shapes and the types of submissions which are required for the court hearing. So if you look at all of these things, there were so much of the copying, duplicity, multiple files, data scattered across all these files. What work has been done would have to be collated across different files, different versions, different. And then when there is this court submissions, they would have to keep that snapshot separately so that in future they can refer what was submitted in court on such and such date. If you look at all of these things, and when we discussed with them, again with one of our global system integrator partner, we discussed with them to transform this entire working digitally. They were in disbelief. They just couldn't believe that this entire working can be transformed into digital. And mind it, the user persona, they were the lawyers and attorneys, and we all know how particular these lawyers and attorneys are in the way they want to work, the way they want to see the work, the way they want to manage the work. They are so particular about it. So we went about doing that. What we did was, not only we converted the entire documents into digital files, but what we really did was we mimicked that entire physical working way into electronic. What that means is I must say that I must mention this again, this to you. If you look at that folder from all those three sides, there would be tens and hundreds of post-its and post-outs sticking out of the folders, indicating that which page the work has been done. So when we mimic that entire thing into electronic world, each one of the post-its, the annotations that the lawyers were doing, we converted them into not only into electronic, but we also associated bookmark with them. What that meant was on any page or section of the document, when the lawyer is making or the attorney is making any work or annotating or adding a note, it would bookmark with that and it would come into an aggregated view for the lawyers. Not only aggregated view, but they are also able to now search on this. In the previous world, they would go to those inside cover of the folder, go through those 5 or 10 pages line by line to find out when was a particular work done and on which page. Today, they are able to just search on it, click on it, and on a click, they are taken directly to that page and that section into the file. So that's the paradigm shift that was achieved in the digitalization in this case. And these return on investment benefits I talked about. I'm almost out of my time. In fact, I might have eaten on the question and answer. I'll just take maybe 1 minute to give you a brief on this platform can not only serve the need of I took a couple of insurance example, and this webinar is about insurance, but the same platform can take care of applications of varying complexity in different industry: banking, financial services, capital market, wealth management, enterprises, starting from shared service centers, accounts payable, all of those processes, internal, external, all of those. Just a quick credential, this platform has been featuring in Forrester and Gartner reports for more than a decade. Consistently, what that tells you is that the platform has been is innovating year on year, meeting the contemporary criteria set forth by these Forrester and Gartner analysts. We feature as a strong performer in just recently published content platform by Forrester, and only this week Gartner came out with its Magic Quadrant for low code, and we feature there as well as niche player. With that, Gunjan, back to you, and we are happy to take questions.
Thanks, Anurag. That was a wonderful overview of the Newgen One platform. And Ellen, if you're here, yeah, hi. I can see you now. So we are on top of the hour, but probably we just have enough time to just take a couple of questions over here. So Ellen, a question that has come in is like the shift from efficiency to effectiveness that you covered. What are the business implications of this?
Well, the thing I loved about Anurag's presentation is he just totally nailed what the challenges were. So when we think about that kind of efficiency model, I mean, we're working in a single work stream. We pass stuff up to, someone upstream to us, or downstream to us, and we took stuff from people upstream to us. Now we have to think about how we're going to be working in these multi-integrations. So, obviously the example, of the attorneys at, at that particular insurer, they're touching multiple workflows. It's not just a single workflow. It's not just a single system. That shift from being efficient to effective is really going to, and meeting the needs of these high skilled jobs is, they're going to be spanning multiple workflows, multiple integrations. And, I think that's something that not many people have kind of thought about, except, clearly you guys have. So that one, that's going to be a huge implication of this shift. Not single workflow, but just thinking about the streams or waterfalls or torrents that we're going to have to traverse, in, these new job skills.
Perfect. And I'll just take one last question. Probably Anurag, you can also chime in this, and Ellen also. Firstly, for Ellen, like along with the low code, no code, what else do we need to consider in the future of development?
Well, of course, cloud. Cloud is a huge area here, and I was happy to see Anurag brought that. Excuse me. I have a tickle in my throat too. Brought that up in his presentation, but basically we've crossed the chasm in the insurance industry on the value of cloud. It kind of spans, the P&C guys have really totally bought into it, but basically this is how we're going to, basically this act at the speed of our customers is, we aren't going to be able to do it on-prem anymore. It's going to have to be in the cloud. So, the capabilities that we're going to be thinking about from both a development and an operational standpoint is again, again, it's cloud native. That's going to be the way we're going to be living our lives in this kind of new effectiveness world that's going to help us meet the, meet the needs of customers and act at the speed that they want us to.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with Ellen. Absolutely, that's the way. I just want to add one thing, that in addition to the low code and no code, and especially into the insurance industry, I would say that don't overlook or don't ignore the role of the content
Yeah.
and the complexity of the content. I touched upon this in my second case study, or even in the first case study. The content which are existing for the life of the policy, and these policies live for 20, 30, 40 years. In those years, you collect hundreds and hundreds of content in, again, different shapes. And going forward, those shapes and forms and formats are going to change. Those are no longer going to remain those traditional email, fax, and paper. These are going to be more social, more audio, more video. So look at the content, make it intelligent. Don't ask your users to scramble through volume of content to find what they want to. Make it intelligent, present in the context of the process. That's what I want to add on top of that.
And certainly would help with billable hours from the lawyers. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ellen and Anurag. We really appreciate your time and the valuable insights that you brought to the forum. Newgen will send across a copy of the recording to all the registrants. Those who are not able to share their questions today, please feel free to send them over via email, and we'll have them answered. Thank you again, and have a great rest of the day ahead.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
With us.